Welcome to the Thriving Farmer Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Kilpatrick. Our mission is to inspire, educate, and celebrate sustainable farming. We believe that you can build a profitable, sustainable farm that gives you true farm freedom. Join us as we talk to farmers, innovators, educators, and entrepreneurs to glean their top takeaways in business and life. Hey, Thriving Farmers, Michael Kilpatrick here with yet another episode of the Thriving Farmer Podcast. Today, my guests are Anna Withers, who is the Farmer and Resource Development Manager for Springfield Community Gardens in Springfield, Missouri. Joining us also is Kevin Prather, who is the farm coach and is in charge of education at the farm. Springfield Community Gardens envisions a community where everyone has access to healthy local food. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So, Anna, give us a little bit of before you had this job, what was your journey to this point?
Oh, definitely. Well, I was born and raised in Springfield, Missouri, and we had agricultural roots in our family. I totally skipped the green thumb. I am good at budgets and finance, and I went to school for nonprofit. Awesome. And I, have worked in nonprofit for over a decade now. And when I moved back to Springfield, I was looking for a job, and I had wanted to make a pivot from social services to more environmental pursuits. And funny you should ask, I was talking to my good friend Kevin, and there was a position open at Springfield Community Gardens for a farmer outreach coordinator, something like that, and I got the job after being back here a month, and now I've been here about 3.5 years.
Very cool. All right, and then Kevin, talk to us kind of like what your background has been.
Yeah, so I was one of those people that college really wasn't didn't really hit me. Yeah, I think it's awesome for a lot of people, but that's not. I discovered trying to do college that's not really the way that I learned. And I was just doing some retail stuff, working at coffee shops, that kind of thing. And I had a friend that basically just said, hey, you seem like you maybe need an outlet. You should come volunteer at this farm. So lo and behold, I volunteered. Day one, I was like, oh, this is a thing that you can do? This is cool. I kind of dabbled in some gardening and stuff. And my family, my grandma and grandpa had, a big old garden all the time growing up. So I had some proximity, but I didn't realize that you could do it for a living. Or close to. And so, after volunteering one time at this really cool farm in downtown Springfield, they let me come on as a year-long live-in apprentice. Okay. So I kind of dropped down to part-time at the coffee shop I worked at. And then from there, I've kind of just been working in regenerative agriculture in some degree or another. I worked for an organization called Springfield Urban Agriculture Coalition, which had school gardens and a couple high tunnels in some public schools here in town. And my job was just to kind of keep them looking nice, fill in for a garden leader if there wasn't one. And then I ended up going back to the farm that I apprenticed at as a field manager. And then I started working for Springfield Community Gardens for a couple years. And then I ended up going back as the farm manager when the owners of that farm started another farm in 2 other states, actually. And at that point, I had met my wife at that farm. We had gotten married and had a kid. In fact, we got married on that farm.
Where
we met.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then sadly, that farm closed. So our director at Springfield Community Gardens was nice enough to let me come back. So that's kind of been my journey.
Very cool. So you've been in and out then of this. This is cool. So talk to us a little bit about Springfield seems to be a happening place. Seems like a lot going on. But in the whole local food culture, what does Springfield Community Gardens do? So you gave us a little bit at the beginning, but share it a little bit more kind of in depth of how you guys involve people in the community and train people.
Yes, we have a lot of programming and a very small but mighty staff. Our nonprofit was founded 15 years ago by our executive director, Miley Otterson, and it was part of a school project. She was going back to school for urban planning, and they were assigned to identify a need in the community and present a solution to that need. So she focused on food security on the north side of Springfield, which is a Zone 1 area. It's a section of the city designated as being lower socioeconomic status, much less access to food, let alone healthy local food. So her project was to start a community garden. And that is really the origin story for our organization. And it all started with one garden. Today, we have 16 community gardens across Springfield. So those are all sites where people come to learn how to grow food and can partake in the harvest if they volunteer.
Okay.
And there's always excess food, so that excess food gets donated to a multitude of different programs throughout the city. And it's a connect. The gardens create connection spaces for people and provides opportunities to connect folks who otherwise wouldn't have crossed paths. So those are our gardens. And then we have 4 total programs. One is the gardens. Another is our farmer incubator program, which is really what, Kevin works more closely with. But we have 3 of our own farms that are staffed by our employees, whereas the gardens are run by volunteers. And our 3 farms are also like training sites. We hire beginning farmers. Kevin helps run our internship program. We give so many tours and we do educational workshops for the public, totally free. And so people can really come and learn and see how to use high tunnels, see how to aggregate or use special cooling equipment. And then we have a youth program. We have a 4-H club that I help run because, you gotta teach the kids to love their vegetables and where their food comes from. So that's a really nice fit for us. And then, really right now, we are acting as our own mini food hub for this area. Besides the food that we grow, we also have funding that allows us to buy from local farmers and aggregate that food. And, we take it we buy and sell to different food hubs. We help fulfill different CSAs, and we are just trying to eliminate some of those barriers to getting farm fresh food to the public. Because everyone screams at the top of their lungs, like, eat local, buy local. But at the end of the day, it's still not as easy as it could be.
Nope.
So we're trying to really bridge those divides, support growers, get more food out there, and just kind of do everything at once.
Yeah. I always think it's a travesty with the amount of events and programs and things that people are involved in. And if they would just put 1/10 of that toward working, helping, and involved in local ag, just how much cheaper that would be.
Yeah.
Just case in point, like right now we're doing our fall carrot weeding, and we did flame them and we cultivated them, but we weren't able to cultivate like we wanted to because of a few challenges. And so my team is having to go out there and hand weed a little more than we'd like to. And if we just were able to reach out to the local farming community of people that want to be involved and say, hey, could we get a crop mob over here? 20 people for 2 hours would knock it out.
Yes.
And then my team could focus on all the other things that we're supposed to be doing on the farm. And because now that cost has been alleviated from us, we would be able to bring those, a portion of those carrots to the local food hub or, anyway. So I just think there's so much capacity here that we could be moving towards, but we're just stuck doing so many other things.
It's hard. There's a lot of work to be done, and there are so many different ways that we could feed people and we could support people. It's like getting everyone on the same page to focus on, the really high impact pieces would be great. It's interesting. You call it a crop mob. That's really funny. Around here, we work with Ozarks Food Harvest.
Yeah.
They have a glean team.
Okay, a glean team.
Of volunteers who come and exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
they'll send people out and help a farmer harvest stuff they don't have time to, instead of all that produce going to the compost pile.
Yeah.
Or abuse.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. So 16 sites. Talk through how many years did it take and how big are these sites? I'm assuming they're more probably like city lots.
A lot. Yes, they are. They're all in the urban Springfield area, but our gardens are so different. It really depends on each site. Um, some of the gardens we have in partnership with local schools
Okay.
or churches that have a little bit of land that they want to cultivate. I think some are park board sites. I'm trying to think of what else. I mean,
One's at a fire department here in town.
yeah, it really, whenever we didn't go from 1 to 16 overnight. There's definitely been a lot of fluctuation, because since they are volunteer led, like we don't just go, and the point is not to just open up a million gardens. When someone comes to us and says, hey, there should be a garden here, it really relies on members of the community stepping up and being like, hey, our group wants to work on this. Like, there is a need in the community for a garden to be right here. And if they don't have we call them garden leaders. We have people assigned, and they're given a little bit more responsibility and a little bit more authority to make decisions for their garden. They wouldn't happen without that. So they look very different depending on where they are. And some of our gardens offer plot rentals where neighbors can come, and we only charge $5 or $10 a year for people to have a raised bed plot, and that is their plot to do with whatever they like. The only real requirements are that they practice regenerative agriculture. Like, everyone just, that's how we operate. That's the education we put out. So you have to sign on to that. And of course, you have to be a good person and not bully anybody or
Yes.
no discrimination, nothing like that. But so those are the requirements. Besides the plot rentals, the other gardens are just, one big happy garden, and the volunteers who come and help work the garden can take home part of the harvest. Or, like I mentioned, there's always excess, always a lot of excess. So we donate that back to different social service agencies, food pantries, even our university food pantry, to make sure that college students have access to fresh food and not just, some canned and boxed goods.
Correct. Absolutely.
I hope that kind of answers your question a little bit.
No, that's fascinating. Okay, so Kevin, talk a little bit about kind of like your role with, education side of things. Just give us a little bit of overview of the program.
Sure. Yeah. So before the grant that we're doing our internship from is the EPA Environmental Justice Grant.
Okay.
We have won an EPA grant in the past, in 2022, and the internship at that point was pretty casual. We had 8 sessions in a month, 2 hours apiece, so 16 hours total. And we basically just sat down and thought, okay, like, what are the 8 main topics that you would need to just dip your toe in to sort of have a broad understanding of what it would be like to be a regenerative farmer. So we went through intro, what is it and what problems are we trying to address with it? Integrated weed management systems, pest management systems, irrigation, plant biology and physiology, down the list. This time, though, we have sort of a tier 2, which instead of just being 16 hours a month, 8 sessions, there's 12 more weeks that you could opt into at the end, totaling 16 weeks. And in those 12 weeks, you go up to 15 hours a week. And at that point, we sort of drop the format, and it's just more problem-solving based, whatever's happening on the farm, issues we need to tackle. And because our farms do a lot more than just farm, like Anna mentioned, a lot of the programs we have you'll also kind of get to see the backside of things and maybe get involved in some things you didn't necessarily expect, but that all go into how the farm operates holistically, you know. So another cool thing about this, having this grant funding this time, is we are actually paying people to take it. The sort of the demographic we're trying to reach are people that might generally be underserved in other areas, and you know we recognize that if somebody is interested in participating in this internship, they may not be able to because I have to take time off of work or have to find childcare or something like that. So we're paying $15.50 an hour to any participant to offset the time that they're spending with us. And yeah, we hope that that sort of broadens the pool of participants that can
Yeah,
apply.
absolutely. And so, how many people a year kind of go through the program?
I think 68 total. So the 4 week interns, there's 6 per cohort, and then I'll do a total of 12 for the 16-week cohort.
Okay, all right. And then, so curriculum, you don't really talk a little bit about what kind of like, I guess, farming style do you try to cover in that curriculum?
Sure. Well, yeah. I mean, as you know, there's lots of ways to do something right. I'm definitely not necessarily an innovator, but I have been sort of aggregating cool ideas I see, and not only from you know your famous farm authors and farmers, but also just from people I meet that have cool ideas about stuff. So, I mean, really, I would just say your basic market gardening style. I
Okay,
mean,
yeah.
like how it appears that the farm on Central might run, or you know your Curtis Stone, JM40A, that kind of. You know, we use a BCS. We're no till. We definitely consider the soil to be the thing we're feeding, not the plants. We're trying to sequester carbon. You know,
And we use a lot of season extension structures because we're in the Ozarks. We practice 4 season farming, and we talk a lot about making your season last and protecting the crops because we have insanely inclement weather,
yes.
of course,
Yeah,
where we
well,
are.
yes, where you guys are, you do have very inclement weather.
Yeah, and it changes very, very fast.
Yes. Hey, garlic lovers! Here at the Farm on Central, garlic is one of our staple overwinter crops. We use it in everything: garlic salt, infused honey, fire cider, you name it. But now you can grow your very own garlic straight from our farm to your garden. We offer seed garlic with 3 amazing varieties: Music, German White, and German Red. These guys thrive in zones 2 to 7, and with a little extra care, they'll do great in zones 8 and 9 too. Plus, we've got free shipping on our 1, 3, and 10-pound bags and discounts for bigger orders. Get your seed garlic today at shop.farmoncentral.com and get ready for your own fresh garlic harvest next summer. Happy planting! So then what types of things do you focus on? Do you have any tunnels or hoop houses?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So at the site that we're going to be doing most of this internship, we've got two 30 by 96 high tunnels from Four Season Tools, and so they're on that proprietary V track, you know, so we can move them really really smoothly. It's awesome. And then we have another stationary high tunnel that's the same size. But so you know, I'm sad I didn't mention this earlier, but one of the farms that we have, the farm that we're doing this internship at, it's in partnership with Cox Health, which is our city's largest hospital system,
Yeah.
I would
Okay.
say.
Yeah.
And so we're on some of the most expensive land in Springfield. I guess they turned down a big buy from Costco, uh, and so yeah, they definitely put their money where their mouth was and said, you know, they had this whole campaign about uh,
It's the right
it's
thing.
the right thing. Yeah, that this sort of farming and showing the community how to do it.
And investing in community health.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's one of only, I think, 5 hospital farms in the nation, and we're really fortunate to have that partnership and be able to show people how the food system could work. Making sure that our patients are eating more healthful food, and what a big market in healthcare for farmers and for food. So we're trying to overcome a lot of those barriers and just open up doors of opportunity for other people. So it's a cool site that people get to come and learn from. We put a lot of investment in that site to make it as state of the art as possible. And we've got
Yes.
some nice coolers and a big propagation house. Like that's our most built out farm site because it's supposed to be an educational site.
Yeah. And how big is that? How many square feet?
So we really are. We broke ground in 2019, but we consider ourselves to just be getting started. It's a 5-acre
Wow.
area that we lease, but we're on about 1 acre total, and that includes like, all our sheds and high tunnels and processing areas, prop house.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. And it's so, yes, so much of our current healthcare system is so broken. It's good to see that at least one healthcare organization is putting the foot down on saying, here's what's important. Let's actually support that. Yeah, because they could have made a boatload of money off that, but it's amazing to see that they're willing to let you guys build that out and do that. What's the kind of lease terms you have on that?
They, as far as I know, I mean, it's a partnership.
Yeah.
They do we pay for that?
No, we don't pay.
No,
we do not
they
pay.
let us. I mean, I wouldn't say we're doing them a favor.
Yeah.
But we manage the site. They don't have farmers on staff. They're not going to try to manage a farm.
Okay.
So it's a win-win. Like they
Yeah.
have given us permission to use that land, and any new infrastructure project we discuss, like we're in very close talks with them at every step of the way, and they're invested with the longevity of the farm, the beauty of the farm. So it's definitely a partnership, and we're happy to be able, I mean, you know how hard it is to get space.
Yeah.
And good space at that. So yeah, we are the farm there, and that's what we manage.
That is awesome. So then on that site, do you just grow vegetables? Do you also do like some perennials? Because that's pretty big.
Yeah, well, like I said, we've only developed about 1 acre.
Okay.
But I mean, for this type of growing 1 acre, it can feel very big. We do focus on specialty crops, but we also grow a lot of flowers. We have some local like health food stores and stuff that we sell bouquets to.
Okay.
And we're gonna get bouquets into the hospital. Also, great fit in there.
Yes,
People,
that would be awesome.
The other side of wellness.
Yes.
Yeah. And then yeah, we have some, like windbreaks and stuff. We've got an elderberry
Awesome.
windbreak.
Yeah.
And some, aronias and hazelnuts and beauty berries and that kind of stuff around. We would like to do more fruit trees, but right now, Cox is not exactly comfortable with that because not knowing exactly what the future holds for the lifetime of that property. I understand
Gotcha.
that's a lot more of a commitment.
So you don't have like a signed lease that says you have the property for like 20 more years. It's more of a, you don't know?
I don't think so. There is an agreement.
Okay.
But I don't think it's as formal as like we are leasing you the land
Gotcha.
here.
Okay.
But there are agreements in place.
Gotcha. Okay.
Luckily they want us there, and it's taken a lot of trust building, and at first their vision for the farm was a little bit different, and they again, they care a lot about the aesthetics. It's at a very visible place in Springfield.
Absolutely. Yes.
They wanted to make sure that the farmers they were entrusting with that community asset were really going to take care of it. And, so far we've done a really good job, and we've been able to expand in many different ways that, weren't in the original plan. And there are a lot of talks of how to expand. Like they want to eventually have some, they've talked about a wellness center there, or maybe some walking tracks where people could come and spend their lunch break, or if you're in a hospital, if you're a patient or a family of patients, it's really nice if you can have a break from all that artificial lighting and those very sterile environments. So I think that they're still trying to figure out what exactly that looks like, because Kevin said, the land is quite large. There's a lot of space to be creative with it.
Yeah.
We're still just figuring that out.
It's funny you mentioned the people kind of taking their lunch breaks and stuff on site, because that's actually already happening. People will pull up in their cars with like their sandwich or whatever, just sit in their car and just watch us in the parking lot while they eat. Hey, come on out, buddy. Come sit on a bench. Like you can come chat. You don't have to hang out in the parking lot.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I was just trying to understand kind of like what their long, but it sounds like this is a long-term project for them. But I guess also from their point of view is that they don't want to commit to somebody who it might just turn into a jungle and look like, the wild side. So that's probably,
so we've had to prove ourselves quite a bit.
Correct.
But they've been wonderful to work with, and it does feel like they have our backs, and we've made them very happy so far, and they love. I wish you could see it, but right now it's situated in a way where from the hospital patient rooms, like people can look out and see a field of flowers, and they see grass and they see different things growing. Instead of, a Costco, which we like.
Awesome. Yeah, no, that's really cool. So then talk a little bit about, obviously, because you've got so many different sites, your soil's going to be different and all of that. But I also know that with a lot of like community garden aspects, you're not dealing with like farm soil. So you probably have to do a lot of amending. Kind of talk through a little bit kind of like about your fertility program.
Yeah, well, to be honest, like in my role, I don't spend that much time with the community gardens. Okay. I'm also kind of doing, I check in once a week for certain farms on like infrastructure stuff. If somebody needs a high tunnel fixed or a raised bed fixed or some irrigation done, I'll be there for that. But I think typically what happens is they get raised beds filled with city compost and mulch and things like that. I'm pretty sure that's what's going on there. And their individual soil programs are kind of up to each of the garden leaders.
Yeah, I know initially when we start a site, like we'll do a soil test and make sure that there are no concerns. And part of their annual, each garden, we pay for them to have an annual budget.
Okay.
And they have a lot of say over the budget. If they're like, hey, we want to add raised beds, or we need new irrigation equipment, or we want to spend all of it on compost, then so be it. But compost is a big part of every garden. There is we have one site that we had to put on pause for a while because we did test for high levels of lead in the soil, which is always a concern whenever you are growing food in an urban environment or not growing food in an urban environment. Springfield's an old town, so it's very important that we do get that testing done. But again, that's and we've worked with some experts to help us remediate the soil, and we do have raised beds there, and it's been a really powerful educational tool and just a learning process for all of us, because that's a very real thing that people have to deal with, and that garden is very close to reopening. So we do make sure that we're monitoring things, and throughout the year we put out so many opportunities, and we talk so much about soil health. So if people, if there is an issue or anything, we have a really strong network of people who know the answers. So we just make sure the right people are connected.
Okay.
At the farms, however, I can speak to that. We do yearly soil testing. I think that's really important. And also, a lot of these sites were, like, for instance, our first market garden was the old baseball diamond for an elementary school.
Okay.
So obviously, your soil organic matter is not going to be very high, and it's probably not going to be very happy. Your pH is probably going to be a bit wacky and stuff like that. So we have year after year after year been adding organic matter, compost from the city we really like, and then basically amending off of soil tests. At the hospital farm, a lot of what we were going into initially was basement fill dirt from the original construction of the hospital.
Okay.
And then just like really, really, really rich clay out there. It's just so much clay. So out there, I mean, we brought in, I think the first year we brought in something like 80 to 90 yards of compost for the first 4 30 by 96 plots.
Okay.
And then we cover cropped.
Yeah,
and
lots
then
of cover cropping.
Yep, and then we amended, and then we cover cropped again, and then terminated it, and then planted into it for the first time. So that was a pretty serious ordeal to get going originally. But we think it was well worth it. That first year especially, it was like Jurassic. The vegetables we were growing, they were just like huge. Like, I'd never seen a cabbage this big in my life.
Yeah. So, going back to that that place you had to stop farming because of lead, what did you do to remediate that?
There was we worked with, it's CTOR. We worked with CTOR Solutions, who do a lot of work with the EPA, brownfields, and different environmental factors. And I don't know the specifics of the plan and what we did there, but I know at this point, like we really focus, even though we did things to the soil, we went ahead and said, you know what, raised beds are going to be the way to go here.
Okay.
And then
Yeah.
we did a couple online webinars about what you need to know about gardening safely in soil with lead or heavy metals. So we've tried to put that information out there and the resources that do exist in our area.
Gotcha. Okay. Gotcha.
But it was a plan. It was pretty specific to the site, and I don't know that's where you lose me a little bit, is like the nuts and bolts of the gardening practices.
Gotcha. Talk a little bit about kind of like where the support comes from for the organization.
Great question. So our executive director is extremely skilled with grant writing.
Okay.
She has raised at this point, over the 15 years, millions of dollars for our organization, primarily through the USDA and different divisions of the USDA. We've as well as Missouri Department of Agriculture. We are primarily funded through federal grants, but we also have a decent base of local support through individuals and some private foundations. We've got some community foundation grants over the years, but a lot of it has been, recently we've gotten food safety grants because we teach a lot about produce food safety and how important that is, whether it's at growing crops, farm worker hygiene, harvesting, processing, transportation. We talk a lot about food safety. We've received a couple of the 2501 grants that are focused on teaching farming to underserved communities, as Kevin said. We've gotten a beginning farmer rancher grant before. We've gotten an ag vets grant before because we do serve a lot of veterans and are very on board with trying to support our veterans who are getting into agriculture. I know that's something very near and dear to Miley's heart because she's a fourth generation farmer and she grew up on her parents' dairy farm, and drew a lot of inspiration from her dad. So that matters a lot to our organization. And then recently the EPA, that's been terrific. And you wouldn't think that the EPA would necessarily fund farming activities, but it ended up being a really good fit because their priorities lie in building community resilience and making sure that our food system doesn't collapse and that we have people in an area that know how to grow food in the face of disaster or not disaster, just growing food. So that's been a really great source of support. We've gotten a lot of the tunnels funded through the Natural Resources Conservation Service as well, because we practice all those great conservation methods. Am I forgetting anything?
I think you got
very
you got most of them.
Okay, good. Very USDA heavy.
Yeah.
They care about feeding people, and we care about feeding people.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about your youth program.
That's my favorite.
All right.
I get to run our 4-H club, and we offer it to youth age 7 to 12. And we do a combination of meetings and field trips, and we do a farming camp. So we include a lot of just gardening practice. We talk about seed saving. We talk about pollinators. We talk about heirloom seeds. Sometimes we'll make birdhouses out of found materials. And we also make sure to talk about farming careers and careers in agriculture that may not be farmer, but it may be arborist. It might involve plant biology. So we're putting those ideas in their heads of just all the different ways that you can be a part of agriculture, which is very important. Our farming camp is awesome. We take them out to different farms and just again, we're just exposing them to different opportunities and showing them what a career in farming might look like. We also, we fit in a lot. We have one garden with the American Indian Center, and so we talk to them about indigenous farming methods. And we have a community kitchen also that I didn't even mention, but sometimes we will harvest from our garden that we have our meetings at, and we will take it over to our community kitchen, and they help clean it and process it, cut it up, prepare it in a meal. And there's no better way to get kids to eat their vegetables than if they picked something, washed it, and cooked it themselves. So we have a lot of fun, and we do a lot of different things. So we always keep it interesting, and we always give them really delicious, healthy snacks. And, that way we can it's an easy tie-in to talk about seasonal eating, which is something totally lost on people now. And we just try to get them excited about food and farming.
Absolutely. Kevin, talk a little bit about the future. Kind of like, what is your role? What do you see your role moving towards? Or you kind of like the flow that's in now?
Yeah, I really like where it ended up. My goal when I started farming was to one day retire and then turn back around and teach aspiring farmers how they can also be successful. And I haven't retired yet. But I do feel really, honored to actually get to be teaching what I'm learning as I'm learning in real time. I mean, I've been doing this for a decade, but I still feel like I'm brand new. I'm always honing in on stuff and tweaking things, and it's just really cool to be able to bring people along on that journey. So yeah, the future for me is more of the same, and hopefully getting better about it and reaching more people. I really like where I am, and it's fun. I mean, really, most of the time, it just feels like I'm playing. And to get paid to feel like you're playing is
good feeling, man.
Not a lot of people get that, so I feel very lucky.
Yes, that's a good
some
feeling.
Some people, I feel, are just naturals at it, and some people belong in the dirt, and you cannot keep them out of it. Like they might just have a large farm or garden that they go to after work, but like you're not going to stop them, and it's not really an option for some people. Like they are just called to grow food and have that connection with the land. And I think that is, to me, it's very inspiring. I think Kevin embodies that a lot, and he's a very good teacher. He takes time, and he's very direct, and we've been very lucky to have him. Like given, you haven't been doing this decades and decades, but he's a soil nerd and loves talking about it and getting people excited, and he really helps people understand that principle behind soil health and the regenerative aspect, and that's what we're really trying to inspire people about.
But people do say I talk too fast, so go ahead and put that on the con category.
That's fixable.
I used to talk really, really fast and mumble, and I feel like I've gotten slightly better. Not 100%.
Sounds good to me.
It's anyway, yeah. Well, I appreciate having you guys both on the podcast. This has been fascinating. This is really fun to listen to people that are passionate about what they're doing, which is helping educate people on regenerative and local ag. So that's awesome to see what you guys are up to and the success you guys are having. It's mind-blowing to me because Springfield's not a huge city, but you guys have tremendous, really good across the entire city. You got a lot of projects going on, which is good to see.
Thank you so much
for
Michael. The opportunity.
Yeah. So there you have it, another episode in the books. So I'd love if you would hop on over to iTunes and leave us a rating and a review. Those mean everything to us. We love to hear what you're thinking. If you have a podcast guest that you can recommend, please pop on over to the Thriving Farmer Podcast website and leave us a review. That's thrivingfarmerpodcast.com.